States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Welcome to this month's, what month is this? This is April meeting of the Tampa Streetcar. The first item on our agenda is election of officers and vote on board appointments to other board committees. The chairman, I believe, was Dawn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I answered the. We would like to nominate Mr. Jacobs and Dr. Robinson and I were on a committee to nominate. We'd like to set forth Director English for President, Director Jordan Ahern for Vice President, and Director Jacob for Secretary. And
Move approval.
thank you.
There's a motion and a second.
Can I do it for all three at the same time? Okay.
Sweet. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Thank you.
Congratulations.
All three.
For your wonderful leadership, yes. And for our committees, for marketing, we would like to nominate Director Hamilton. And on that committee, we would like to have Director Ahern, Director English, Director Jacob, Director Shanahan, and committee members also Donna Chen, James Ratliff, and Joan Genowan. For the Finance Committee, we would like to nominate Director Jacob, and as part of that committee, Director Vance, Director Shanahan, and Director McDonough.
As a point of information, the chairs of those committees were Hamilton and Jacob, respectively, nominated.
Yes. As the chairs.
Perfect.
There we go. And then the last outside committee appointment is for the MPO Technical Advisory Committee. The current is Director English. We thought you had so much on your plate with the presidency and marketing that we suggested Director Vance for the MPO Advisory Committee.
Only if you're willing to go. We had some people are so busy that they don't go.
When do they meet?
They met last Monday. It's the same day every month at 1:30 in the afternoon. The reason I say that is because it's an important committee. It shares a lot of information.
Right.
I often will go to it anyway.
Is it the first Monday of each month, or is it?
It must be the second.
Sorry.
Second Monday.
That will be hard for me to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have someone else go because I think it's a very educational committee. The NPO reviews everything that's going on, really to do with transportation in the community. So it's a good committee, and I know everybody, but I'm happy not to do it if someone else would like to.
I know I was your alternate and I had a conflict all of last year. The conflict may have resolved itself, but I didn't know yet.
Well, right now they have us both, so you know, sort that out. We'll make you the designee, but I'll go if you can.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That sounds good.
I think that works.
I will move to accept that nomination.
We have a motion and a second.
Second?
These are all the committees, right?
The whole slate.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Thank you, committee, for your hard work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is approval of minutes. Do you have a chance to approve them? There's approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Streetcar System Performance Report, Mr. Bellman.
Good afternoon. The TICO line streetcar system delivered 99.8% of the contracted trips for March, with 3.75 reported missed trips, and these were due to master controller issues and 2 accidents. In March, we had no late departures, 2 accidents in March. Saturday, March 12th, a motor vehicle which was abandoned got stuck on the tracks just below the CSX interlocking and had to be towed away. And then on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, a motorist actually drove the wrong way into Adamo Drive, hitting the streetcar. Again, minimal damage and no injuries on that. We had 10 special events in March with 38 hours and 4 minutes of extra service, 4 lightning games, 2 early departures for the Aida Vida cruise ship, and noticeably on this last trip there was a diminishment of ridership. We think that as it got warmer, there were less people interested in coming to us, and we'll have to see if that's a pattern for next year. And we did the Rihanna concert, 2 parades, and a wedding charter, which was a lot of fun. 2 issues. St. Patrick's Day parade and the Tampa Pride parade. Both of them did not come through HART, but came through the police department where we were directed to have a service suspension, particularly St. Patrick's Day. To my knowledge, they have not paid the fee, although I have asked our finance department to try and bill them. But somehow they are circumventing our procedures and our fees for a proper shutdown service suspension.
And Richie, if I may note on that, when it comes to the finances, since we invoice the city of Tampa, we can recoup the fees. The bigger issue is we have a documented process for public safety reasons that the entities in the area have to contact us in a certain window and arrange for a cease of service. And it's more that process is not being happened. We can bill for the money, but it's the not getting the heads up on events that may be unusual. We always know St. Patrick's is coming, but if there are other parades, there has to be a better way for us to get that information. I think that's really the most critical part.
So who do you need to talk to?
I'm not certain. I don't know. Carla, I think, has excellent relationships with folks. So let us circle back after the meeting and see. Maybe some staff has moved around at City Hall. I mean, we have excellent connections with the mayor's office and can figure out new folks if we need to.
There have been some changes in the special details within the police department. I don't know if that's having an effect on it or not.
That may be it. It may be that we've received administrative heads up and the police department doesn't know, so they show up and do this even though we've already arranged it. So we'll just circle back and figure out and bring it up to you next meeting.
Great, thank you. I didn't ask for. I'm sorry, Richie.
Please.
No.
Trackways and interlockings, all inspections were done as scheduled. Same with the overhead catenary. We had 40 wheelchair boardings, and substations were done inspected as required. 15 A services performed in March. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, I do. A couple of comments, actually. One, I want to commend the training of the operators. My wife and I took a streetcar ride to Ybor, and a young couple that were struggling, obviously your parents were very much struggling with their stroller situation, and your operator was just wonderful in assisting them with getting the stroller on and off, and they did a wonderful job, and they were very sensitive to it. These are obviously very new parents. Been there, done that a long time ago, but I just thought it was just really wonderful the way they did that, so I wanted you to know that. And then secondly, I drive from Harbor Island every day northbound on Franklin Street, so I'm driving parallel to the streetcar line there. And I can't tell you how many times, I think already once this week, twice last week, I see cars making a right-hand turn to go off of Burring Street to go down towards the Fort Brooke Garage, so right in front of Camel's, and make a turn and head straight down the streetcar lane, dedicated streetcar lane. One time actually where it was, I don't know if I'm using this the right word, but I can only sense the surprise in the person when they made a turn and went down and face to face with the streetcar. So I don't know. The signage situation is minimal there, and I don't know if that's something that your staff has observed, but I've certainly observed it as a potential safety situation. Is that? I don't know what to say other than I've observed it. It's obviously something that people continue to do.
I've seen it as well on their Central Ybor around 15th Street as well.
I'm very glad you mentioned that, Mr. Jacob, because that has been a major issue for me for day one. We have worked very diligently with the city, and what we've told them point blank is that we want flashing red lights and railroad crosswalks at each and every crossing. That's what we expect. The yield to Streetcar, the outdated box up in the air with the no left or no right doesn't cut it. And going back to the accident on Idaho Drive, what's funny about that one is that is the best intersection that we have in the system, installed by FDOT about 3 months ago, and what we've told the city, this is what we expect going forward. Now, as we had no real progress with the city, and this just kept going back and forth, been working with our safety department, and they went and checked the manual for uniform traffic device controls that is in existence now. The Streetcar was built under the 2000 Act. Now you have the 2009. The 2009 classifies us as light rail. In doing so, it allows that, yes, you can use red lights, crosswalks, and various other things as a railroad, but that has to be done on a case-by-case basis. So to make that happen, because nothing was happening with the city, even with our referring them to the NUTCD, we enlisted the help of Florida DOT and their consultant, Transit Research Associates, to make the case that we fall under light rail and therefore we need upgraded signage. Whether it's a fixed sign, whether it's an illuminated sign, whether it's the flashing red lights, we want to be treated like a railroad, and that has been our consistent message. FDOT came back and said, yes, this is light rail and has to be treated so as outlined in the map. So the next point of the city is they're looking to get a consultant aboard to study each of our intersections to see how that's going to fall out. So that's exactly where we are right now.
What's the expected cost?
Don't know. This is under Milton Martinez and his group.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, last week we concluded the triennial rail safety audit. So we obviously reviewed you last fall. We've also added on the HART side a full-time rail safety specialist. An internal is an Army veteran who was a mechanic and a dispatcher, so good sense in transit. Between the two, we've really gotten our hands around what needs to be done from the HART side as the operator, or the city side as the owner and maintainer of the right-of-way, to have consistent signage, to have consistent striping. You'll notice at different points in the system we have yellow stripes, we have red stripes, we have white stripes, and the signs don't make any sense. So the guys are in front of the project of saying, here's the inventory of existing conditions. Here's the stuff which is in the HART right-of-way. It's appropriate for us to go ahead and handle this within the money which we have, but we don't necessarily have the authority to just go change the stuff on the city side if it's their obligation under the operating agreement. So the challenge is to make sure that we're not the nag, but we're laying out, hey, here's what's necessary for safe operations, and then the financial impact on those things comes out of the city budget. It's separate from the portion of the Streetcar budget because it's the city's separate responsibility. But we can see if we can get Milton to come here and do an update.
Well, I think this is a safety issue.
It absolutely is.
It's a public safety issue both for the drivers and the equipment, but also for the public. And I think there needs to be, I can't imagine that somebody would say no to signage, for a consistent period of time. But it's also like, what do we, as whatever committee we're on here, need to be advocates for and support and write a letter and express to whom to say this is unacceptable. And a study could take 3 to 5 years. I know this is goes down the bottom pit of analysis.
Richie, the information that you and Chester have been working on design to get us the list that we say this needs that. Do we have that list ready?
We do have that list ready.
And what's the budget for that?
That's the city budget for Streetcar. Now, there's 2 pieces going on that I want to fill everybody in. We've been talking about track testing for years. The track geometry, which is the position of the rails in the street, the actual width apart, the actual heights of that track geometry. That is now scheduled for May 10th. It's never been done on the system. It's long overdue.
That's progress.
The other piece is the ultrasound testing, which is where they come along and they actually put sound beams through the rails to detect if there's any flaws that are not seen, and they can be catastrophic. That to me is the scary one as opposed to the geometry. The geometry, with mostly our concreted track, the rails really aren't going anywhere. But the idea of the thing cracking, especially in our ballasted track, is one of the things that would keep me up at night. So the track geometry portion is scheduled for May 10th. The ultrasound should be following. That's money we're laying out for the city, which is $25,000 that the city is going to be reimbursing us for. We've already set up that mechanism, and we're happy about that piece. The expensive piece is to me, the most important one, which is our traffic control system, or our train control system, as the federal government would call it. These streetcars preempt the city's traffic signal system, including the lights, as Director Jacob was speaking of. What we found out over time is that this is now a legacy system. The cars have an infrared beam that goes out. The city has a receiver mounted on poles, and the beam goes to the receiver and says, there's a streetcar here. Let me now process the relays so that we can try and give the streetcar through passage, depending upon where it is in the cycle. Fine. What we found out is there were some major deficiencies in this system that could cause liability. And working again with the Transportation and Stormwater Department, we're replacing this system now because it can cause all of us significant liability. So what does that do? We're spending $48,000 to equip the 11 streetcars with this new GPS system. The city is spending $184,000 to re-equip 22 cabins. That for me is the major thing, and that is between that and the track testing is most likely using up all of the streetcar budget that the city has for us this year, or not far from it. Now, to answer your particular question, signage is cheap. Truthfully, if the city said, Richie, go, I would buy crosswalks and stop signs tomorrow and red lenses and change them out. But I don't have that ability to do so. But I encourage the city to do that.
Well, what can we do to help that encouragement? That's my question.
If the board would send a message to the city that this is what we are looking for in addition to HART, I think that would help.
Can you draft a letter for us to send? I think we should send a
Is that Kathleen, that's a city council type of communication? Is it a mayor's office? Is it staff communication?
We can send a letter.
I mean, everyone's talking about this transportation system being the center point of downtown. They're going to build on it. They're going to add to it. They're going to add blah, 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 blah. We don't even have signage. I mean, to me, it's like, and as somebody who, runs the thing, you have a whole list of what you're looking for, which was helpful from a prioritization standpoint. But I think it's helpful to just say, we appreciate the $180,000 that the city has allocated for both the testing and the upgrade, so that we're in sync with the lakes, is what I just heard. But that there's also this need from a safety perspective is we're having more conventions, more tourists, more pros and fours, whatever downtown, more traffic, that we just need to put this on the agenda. I don't think it ever hurts to be an advocate for an organization that you're working for in a nice, respectful way. I mean, I'm not saying, go in there and demand it, but I think it needs to become a priority.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that if you want to take official action like this, that you do it by means of a resolution. And we can bring it back at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think a motion would be in order to express our concerns, probably to the mayor and the chair of the city council. Is this need to rise to that level?
I would think it would go to the mayor. And if it needs to take council action,
It
he
probably
would
doesn't.
refer it.
Okay. And I would like that resolution to be delivered by you to the mayor and his people in his office. So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and you'll develop the language, and actually, I don't want to wait till next month. I want to pass it now. I want to, if you'll allow me, and make a motion to review the letter.
I'd like to see the letter.
It's fine, if the board sees the letter, because I'd like it to be gone within the next few days.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask everybody to, when they get the letter, if you would review it as quickly as possible and get back, and we'll get it out as fast as possible. I like that idea a lot.
Okay, good. So we have a motion and a second. Did we get a second on the motion? Any other discussion?
Just, I'm going to be out of town in incognito, so I won't be able to respond. So I'll trust you guys.
Incognito. Not
I'll be on the Appalachian Trail.
Okay, no further discussion. All in favor, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
I have one other question before we go off on that. What's the capacity of special events for the light rail? Like I would like to see, and maybe I have it in this data, although I don't think I've seen it, is a year-over-year, month-over-month comparison that would show 10 events, 12 events, 15 events, 5 events, so that we see that there's the growth that we read about is happening. Is there some way to present that? On a month-by-month, not only traffic, but also special events, because I think that's a revenue. Isn't that an increased revenue opportunity for those? Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So we should market that. I mean, that's like when you said the weddings, one wedding, that sounded like that would be unique, but do we really market to that whole crowd of consultants and, all those people? And I just would be curious as to maybe in the last 2 years, what has been the usage on special event case-by-case basis?
We'll cover 2 things. One, we will do the actual standalone events, so weddings, any kind of charters we've had, like special standalone events. We'll also go ahead and capture things like Gasparilla, 4th of July, Christmas, New Year's Eve, when we the IDV, the things where we have service out there that folks are using to hang out and get an idea of what's going on from there. We'll bring that back for next month.
I have 2 questions as well. On the special service, the convention airs 0 patronage in March. Is that, I know it's been going down since we removed the free service last year. Now, is there something that we're doing at the convention center differently or that we can add to, or people just not interested in the streetcar?
Yeah.
Well, I've reached out to the convention center. We do have a dialogue. Normally we get a notification in advance that this group will be here, they'll be here for these days, they get half fare, fine. In February and March, there was almost nothing for us. We just had to...
We had plenty of business, we just wasn't conventions. It was more local.
So you're saying from a convention standpoint, it was a minimal convention activity in those months?
Local events.
Like trade shows, things like that going on?
We've just had 2 in April.
And then the other question I have is about the 3.75 missed trips.
Yes.
How do we get 0.75 missed trips?
What they'll do is when we know that there's a problem, like there was with the car that came on the right of way, they'll bring the car out of the barn to start to substitute. So that's how you can get that extra quarter trip or half a trip.
Okay. All right.
Great. Are we done with that? Mr. Smoker, legal and legislative reports.
The good news is that I really have nothing to report other than that you filed your annual report that's required by Florida statute. The only thing that's happened since the last meeting is that we did get CSA policy in place. And as part of that, thanks to Grant Newman's help, we were able to get the carriers to agree to some language in the endorsement that will enable there to be a seamless disconnect at some later date should PHS be dissolved. We won't have the same problem that we had in the last year. So, and Grant is here. It might be appropriate for Grant to give us a summary of what he accomplished for us.
Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon.
Can we hear me?
Yes.
All right. Grant Mielek, GCM Insurance again. We placed the insurance policies for HART and THS. We worked very diligently this year, as always, with Dave and his team. We did have a lot of headwinds this year. This year's insurance placement was somewhat simple in nature, but at the same time incredibly difficult. And as Dave mentioned, the difficult piece was to go ahead and make sure the carriers were okay with transferring the policies or having the city of Tampa become a named insured. Everyone thinks it sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult. The good news is we were able to accomplish this this year, and we had a minimal price increase in order to do so. It's basically like $3,000.
Well, thank you again for your help, and we really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll see you this time next year.
Excellent. Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
That would conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few things to mention. One is that on the advice of Ms. Egan, I got a call from Ed Trenchek, who's promoting the downtown Tampa downtown St. Pete Ferry. See if we had conceptual interest in some co-marketing with that service if and when it begins, and I said, sure, and yes. So,
As long as that speaks highly of the light rail. And
yes.
the trolley, the reciprocal relationship.
That's exactly
Ed
right.
needs to be reminded of that.
Yes, he always does. He always does. He's a great proponent for his own ideas.
Correct.
Has been for a long time. A
Tends
number
to trash
of
others.
That's right. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and I'll send some pictures to Steve, and perhaps you could distribute them around. I had an opportunity to be in Milan a couple of weeks ago with my son and a friend, and we did a streetcar dinner. Milan has a very expensive streetcar system, and this was a beautiful antique streetcar with a crystal and white linen service and a 5-course dinner and 3 bottles of wine and 2.5 hours of cruising through the streets of Milan with a full moon, and it was as much fun as I've ever had. It was just great. Now, we can't go back and forth for 2 hours on a
10 trips.
But I was thinking about it, and actually the public transit system operates this, and they have 2 cars, which are full all the time, and the ticket was 70 euros a piece. So 3,500 euros to run the streetcar for 2.5 hours and serve a nice dinner. It was a very nice dinner, and it's a nice wine. It was probably not only a great marketing tool for Milan Transit, but probably profitable as well. So someday I hope we have enough streetcar system to at least drive around for an hour, even if it's in the circle.
We can do that.
So anyway, that's my report. I'm glad to be back, more or less. And I'll turn this over to Ms. Egan.
Can I ask you a question? How many people were having dinner? Was it just...
It was 5 tables, each of which sat 4.
And there was 70 euros per person?
Right.
And it cost 3,800 to run the...
No, I just, in my head, said 3,500 euros, 50 people, 70 euros.
Oh, I see.
So that's a nice fee, and I'll bet it didn't cost them, maybe it cost them 500 or 1,000 euros. So.
You have to take in the whole part of the transit system for...
It was really fun. It was really fun.
That sounds
It
great.
was it was just absolutely
Yeah,
delightful.
it's a great idea.
That's nice.
And thank you, Mr. President. Again, back to previous conversation with Richie, we hosted FDOT for the State Security Office oversight on our triennial review. This was the 3rd one we've done under that particular version of DOT leadership with their same consultants, and it was really nice to hear from them that they were very impressed with what they saw and were excited. The changes they were seeing since Richie and Chester have been tackling stuff. So we look forward to continuing bringing you good information, what their staff is able to do, and outstanding accomplishment, guys. Thank you for all that work. Separate conversation, more kudos over here. Last year's Streetcar Fest was big and wonderful and transformative, and it's time to talk about Streetcar Fest again, so we can come back to you with some more concrete ideas. Previous conversations had been, so prior to last year, staff had recommended looking at a time Streetcar Fest event, but not having it every year. However, last year's Streetcar Fest had more ridership and a lot more attention, a lot of activity at every station, and it was very well received. So staff would like to recommend you consider a Streetcar Fest tied to a particular event. We can look at the calendar for the events, potentially the Cupcake Festival. I will say my kids liked it, but they think frosting is a cupcake and the cupcake is a plate. So I'm not certain we'll be doing that for lunch.
As do I.
And I know that'll be lunch again next year. So I don't believe the Cupcake Festival has set their date. They actually were talking to see if Streetcar Fest was going to happen. The other thing we'd like to recommend for consideration is going fare free. You receive a quarter from every patron, in theory. So last year, the fares collected $1,300. This means the streetcar is taking an extra amount of time at every station. We're having extra staff to make sure we can get quarters into the fare box. And it's a bit of a hassle. We already are pretty full at different times in the day, so you have the constraint of a full streetcar. So we would like to consider the possibility of either identifying a sponsor for Streetcar Festival or just changing your budget so we can do a demo this year of a fare-free day. That also gives us an opportunity to say, look what happens if we make it free. And I don't know if Director Ahern has anything to add.
And on that note, I think Crew Commercial Real Estate Women would like to be a $10,000 sponsor of the Streetcar Festival, and that will be their donation as their contribution from the streetcar sculptures. So if we could coordinate that the same day, I would really like to make that opportunity for the streetcar.
Well, I was
The
going
donation sponsorship.
No, it's wonderful. I was going to ask that the marketing committee perhaps try and meet in a couple of weeks and discuss this for sure. And, we've had some extra money we haven't spent the last couple of years. And I think we need to talk about, we need some clear discussion about what our program needs to be.
Yeah, actually, for October this year, we spent about $20,000, and that's net, and that's taking into account the grants that we received. One from Channelside CRA, the other one was from YCDC. We received one from Downtown Partnership, and then we also received $1,300 or $1,200 from the In-Town Guide. Some of them were applied to fiscal year 15, some were received in fiscal year 15, some were in fiscal year 16, but therefore the net was about $20,000 of what was spent between trinkets, time, HART staff, and expenses.
And that's Streetcar Fest was submitted by, I believe, George English to talk about the overall budget program. Am I correct?
Yeah, not just marketing, but I think we've got operating money we haven't spent because we were kind of discouraged from doing that, going back to the last fiscal year.
I believe we included a bucket in the budget for $100,000 for extra service on the supposition that, as in previous years, we sent a draft budget to the city and then trued it up. The city said no, what we received in June is what you're going with, so HART left that money in there. So the extra service money this year is a HART expenditure.
Because we don't have it? Because they didn't give it to us again?
They did not. And again, in previous years, the budget that we've transmitted to the city in May or June is always subject to discussion, and they get a finalized budget going into July and August. And this year, the direction, last year, so for this fiscal year, the direction from city staff was now what we get in June is what we get in June, but we had already obligated that. We already said the service is going to be out there. So the point being that it would be good to get a true up.
What's the conversation we're having? Free for a day on the
streetcar for a particular event.
For many events or for one?
One. Streetcar Fest.
So the idea was that we offered a fare-free day, and then the discussion would be which day that is. Well, we would like to offer it on a day where it's almost free anyways, so there's actually more income coming in, so tying it into the Streetcar Festival, where the fares are already.
I think it'd be almost free anyway. I'm not understanding.
Streetcar Fest is
So then
board offers us a 25-cent promotional fare. And the streetcars average
done annually.
So maybe they would be considered a title sponsor or presenting sponsor or something to that nature.
And so do you track the amount of people that you attract year over year? Do you see an increase?
We do, and Streetcar Fest has not, it hasn't gone up or down or changed greatly, but part of it is also a constraint with the cars. Those tend to come out earlier in the day, and they load up in the cars. We had better ridership last year, I believe, because there was activity at the stations that kept people from saying, I can't get on, I'm going back to my car. But by going fare-free, we won't be able to stimulate interest throughout the day, separate from just going to the events. I think we also make sure there's a concert going on or other evening events as well.
Everybody loves free.
Yeah, but free, we all have our philosophical discussions about free government service, and my attitude is that we've got money left over, there should be a prioritized list that is not just randomly discussed based on we want to give something away for free, that is, well, we need the safety flags, or we need this, or we've decided as a group that this is important to do and that this is a priority, and there should be a list we pull out.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. That's why I'd like the marketing committee to meet and with staff, with you and Steve, really look at what we've got.
Right.
And when the marketing committee last met, we did come up with a list like that.
And so where is the list?
And again, that was about a year or so ago, so we'll need to dig that up. Steve, I don't know if you have, Steve?
I'm sorry?
We're talking about the marketing committee's work that we did a year or so ago, where we created the list of what to do when we received extra funds. Do you recall?
Yes.
And I know we ticked off some of those items already.
Yes, you did.
But finalizing that list might be helpful, and then adding to it within the marketing committee.
So if you could schedule that a couple of weeks before our next meeting, a week or 2 weeks would be best, if you can manage, if everybody can manage it. Yeah, because then you can ponder it and we can discuss it our next week. Good. Thank you. Steve, anything else you wanted to add since you're standing there on the marketing report?
Yeah, I actually wanted to point you to 4.2, page 4.2, the A to Vita, and what Mr. Baumann was referring to as the dip in ridership for the A to Vita on the last trip on March 30th. Although there was a dip, it's the first column in ridership, and it's before noon. You have to remember that we don't know throughout the entire day ridership what portion of the ridership during all of the day is part of the German cruise ship as well. But if you look at the dip, and if you look at the cost of extra service, it's actually like $1 per person, or a little bit more than $1 per person. But if you take out the expenses versus the revenue before noon, you're still making a profit. A slight profit, but it's still up. So I just wanted to point that out, that the A to Vita was an overwhelming success. And great for us. The other thing that I wanted to point out, too, is we've been extending service for the Emily Arena events. And what we've seen is that for the Lightning, overwhelmingly successful. And we think it is because the discussion we've had internally is the Lightning group people come in groups. They know when the Lightning games are. They are used to the routine as opposed to the individual concerts, because we've tried everything from geofencing around the areas, as well as we placed a radio schedule by HART Media that gave ticket giveaways sponsored by the Streetcar Take the Streetcar. And it seems the individual concerts with what we're doing is not working. So I would recommend ceasing that portion of the program for extended service, because we're seeing literally from what's being reported is zero ridership for extended. And it's been consistently like that. So I just wanted to throw that out and just wanted to show and to highlight what has been happening on the marketing side. Some things are successful. When we added the iHeart Media, we really thought it would be more successful, especially it was tied in with giveaways for the tickets for the concert, so it's specifically tied to it. And that does not seem to be working. And again, we think also that it has something to do with, again, the Lightning people come in groups, they know the routines, whereas this is one-offs. And again, the stations that were chosen for each ticket giveaways obviously are on the playlist for those stations as well. So the stations did vary by the concert, like a Josh Groban versus versus Ellie Goulding or versus Cirque du Soleil. That one's an older one, but they're very different. So we did go with that station that was giving the ticket giveaways, and we specifically did that, and it just didn't seem to work. And we have one more, which is Ellie Goulding.
Let's talk about that at the market.
At the market, sure.
That's a good idea. And we'll have
absolutely. Okay, great.
Okay, good.
And then to wrap up the CEO report, Jeff, Wi-Fi when?
By the end of the year.
Streetcar will have Wi-Fi on board by the end of the year.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Any other comments? Ms. Gage is here today.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me. And Direct Media, we are very, very excited that we recently renewed our agreement with HART to continue with the advertising on the buses. I know it's separate, but we do get to share the interest that we get on the buses, potentially with the Streetcar for new advertisers. We've had a little bit of activity. We have a couple of new clients that are generating about $6,000 to the Streetcar new advertisers. We also did some advertising for the film festival, the Espresso Film Festival, so that was nice just to get some new names and faces and maybe spark imagination. And then we're talking to the Buccaneers. And I'm very excited about that because they've never invited us in to do so. They are interested in trade, as you probably are used to already. So that might be something that we've had the Buccaneers in the past through Anheuser-Busch. This is directly with them. So we'll see.
That's great.
That's about all I have.
Thank you very much. Any
Okay.
questions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the new advertisers is Tabanero Cigars. They advertised with us back in 2012, and he's expanded and moved, and so now he's doing 6 months worth of ads on the end panels on 3 of the cars. So, and interior cards.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that really concludes our agenda, unless you have any questions about, further questions about the marketing report, the ridership and service reports, or the financial statements from Lee. You also have a copy of our audit, which is, I guess, complete.
I have one comment, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Keeping back to the information that Steve provided us with lighting fans, I'm not going to comment on why lighting fans tend to congregate groups. However, I believe that we have an opportunity ahead of us in light of the disruption that will be happening around the arena after the season and going into next season. And I've thought about this, I know Catherine and I have talked about it, I think you and I both talked about it before, but going to the Lightning, because the disruption that they're going to have at that neighborhood is going to severely impact their ability to park. Their surface lots that they rely on for parking now is going to be very severely impacted, and an opportunity for us to be able to transport people from, say, the parking garages here in Ybor City, which have a tremendous amount of capacity, to assist in that. As looking at it, is there a way to approach the Lightning or talk to them about a ticket package for the season, or for even some of their 10-game packages, 20-game packages, whatever they have, weekend packages, where you'd sell a package that would be, a ticket to the game, or 4 seats, you would get a pass for each one of those seats for the Streetcar and a parking pass, and it's all one big package. You just swipe the little ticket in and off you go. And it seems like an opportunity for us to partner with them, both for elevating our exposure, knowing that they already have a lot of fans that use it, but also in terms of addressing some of the issues they're going to be facing with the parking and helping them solve that. And it just, I wanted to throw that out there to see if that's an opportunity, being that this would be the time to discuss it. Now that they're coming to the end of the season, there's a lot of momentum with them in the playoffs, and they're already, sending out ticket packages for next year.
That's a great idea. Could we put that on the marketing committee agenda?
Okay.
Excellent. Any other business, old or new? If not, I didn't ask if there was anyone in the public who would like to speak, but I think there isn't. So this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
For members only. And we're going to do it as like a breakfast cocktail hour. So we go to a different spot. We won't do the rest.
Do it. Let me go until they say
yeah.